My trip to the cloisters began with me walking through the park on a beautiful day. It was sunny and warm outside. As I got closer to the building, I noticed how nice the architecture was. The building was made out of stone and looked like a church. The entrance was outlined with banners, and when I entered, I walked up steps with pictures hanging on the wall depicting how the cloisters were built. I then reached the ticket desk and bought 3 tickets, one for my mom, dad, and myself. The first room we went into was the late Gothic hall. It was full of old statues and artwork. Statues of the 3 kings were in this room. The kings were made of wood, either poplar or maple, and then painted. The statues were on a shelf high up on the wall. It reminded me of the nativity scene we set up at Christmas. The altarpiece with scenes from the life of St. Andrew was also in this room. It tells the story of St. Andrew by showing important things that happened to him in different scenes. It came from a church in France and was made out of wood. Unfortunately, they do not know the artist that made it. These panels are leaning against the wall on a shelf, in between 2 stone doorways. The next room we went into was the Boppard room. This room contains stained glass and lots of woodwork. The deep dish is also located in this room. The deep dish was made by Hans of Landshut in South Germany in 1498. It is made out of blown glass, foils, and paint. This piece depicts several religious figures and foreshadows Jesus' death on the cross. Some items surrounding it were a chalice and religious scepter. The dish is in a glass case and is held up on a stand. I found this piece very interesting because of how it is detailed. We then went to the unicorn tapestries room. This room had tapestries telling the story of how a free unicorn was captured and then killed. These tapestries were woven in 1680 in Brussels by Francois VI and were made out of wool. Some items around it were the narwhal horn and the shields. The tapestries are hanging on the wall without a frame or case. I found these pieces interesting because nobody really knows the exact meaning of the tapestry story. In this same room, there are 4 stained glass windows called the heraldic panel with arms of the House of Habsburg. These windows show different shields or coat of arms and are made of different glass like pot metal glass and melted glass with silver stain. They think they were made in Ghent. These shields have turnips in them. I have never had a turnip and I think they look more like acorns. Next was the 9 Heroes Tapestries room. In here we found a tapestry on Julius Caesar and King Arthur. Both tapestries are made of wool from the South Netherlands around 1400 to 1410 and were gifts from John D. Rockefeller Jr. One piece depicts Julius Caesar and the other King Arthur. Both are holding swords and sitting down in a chair with other people around them. Both are hanging on a wall without a case or frame. More tapestries, like the one from Alexander the Great or maybe Hector of Troy, are hanging around them. I found both these tapestries dull because they were plain, but they did remind me of a modern-day photograph because I got to see what the heroes looked like. We then went into the Gothic chapel. This was filled with many religious tombs and statues. We continued outside to the Bonafront cloister. It had a lot of plants and bushes that were used during medieval times in witchcraft, ceremonies, and medicine. St. John's wort is used today to help people with depression and anxiety. There is also a beautiful view of the Hudson River from here. The next part of our visit was the glass gallery. I really liked the case of expensive and intricate rings and the painting of scenes from the life of St. Augustine of Hippo. The painting was very colorful. Next stop was the treasury. Here we found the illuminated manuscript and several cloaks, staffs, crosses, and chalices. The illuminated manuscript was made by the Limbourg brothers in Paris around 1405 to 1408. The pages in the book that I saw depict a man carrying a cross and religious figures praying by the cross. Some other items around it were other books. This manuscript is positioned on a stand under a light and a glass case. I found it dull because it just seemed to be a book under a light to me. My last stop was walking through the Pontet Chapter House and Coxa Cloister. Here there were lots of stone arches and rooms, an outside hall with different plants, and bushes like a small orange tree and frankincense. This reminded me of one of the gifts the 3 wise men brought to baby Jesus. I had a nice time walking through the cloisters. It was pretty cool to walk through the different rooms. It felt like I was walking through history. But instead of reading about history, I saw it in pictures, stained glass windows, statues, tapestries, and many other things. It made me think about the stories behind each thing I looked at and why the artist decided to make it.